Hey guys, it's Mr. Kearns here, and right now we are going to go through how to evaluate sources. You guys should have watched my video, the 3-minute video by now, and we're going to look at some sources together, kind of pair it up with what's on that video so you guys can see how this works. Now I've given you 3 different articles to read, and we are going to look at some different sources to see kind of what's there and what you need to be looking for. So the first article you're going to be reading, you can read, is from the CDC, which is the Center for Disease Control. It's a U.S. government body that researches diseases and how they spread. Now, one of the things you want to look for on a lot of reliable sources, it wasn't in the video necessarily, but something that's good to know. Anytime you see this .gov right here, you know if this is a government source. It's not going to be biased or partial. It's going to be based on research. These are the best sources that you can get. So let's take a look at the CDC. So they've got right up here at the top, learn more about COVID-19. So we'll click on this article to take a look. If you need to know how to protect yourself, they're going to give you some info right here. Now you'll notice with this article, one of the things they tell you to look for in that video is an author. There isn't an author. This is perfectly fine. A lot of government sources aren't going to have an author. They're what's called compiled from sources, meaning typically a team of scientists and editors put them together, so there'd be a long list of authors. So if we're going down, we have right up here at the top, if you're an older adult or you have severe medical conditions, they're going to give you some info to let you know if you're at high risk. They've got organized in bullet points how it spreads. Tell you what you should do. A lot of this is stuff that you guys have been hearing already. And they give you a helpful video about hand washing down here. And click on some more information that will all go to the CDC as well. They give you the content source down here, which is key. This tells you exactly where this is from. If you click on it, this gives you who the Division of Viral Diseases is, mission and objectives. So this way you know that this information isn't just coming out of nowhere, that it does come from a valid source. Gives you the date that this page was last reviewed, so you know that this is up-to-date information. It was updated just 2 days ago. So anytime you're looking for info, if it's got the .gov after it, it's a good source. When you guys are evaluating your own CDC source, take a look at these and see what it is. Now, it gets a little bit trickier when you get into .com sources. Some of them are going to be, or .org sources. Some of them are going to be really good sources. Some of them are going to be a bit weaker sources, and you got to look closely at them. Also on .com sources, even newspapers, really good newspapers, there might be some bias, so you got to keep an eye out for where bias occurs. So we'll take a look next at New York Times, which right now is offering you guys free articles. So I'm going to be sending you guys out info for that, so you will have those to search into as well. So New York Times is what is our national newspaper of record. It means that this is the newspaper that's considered the valid source of news at all times in our history. They've been publishing for, I think, 200 or so years almost. So they have been around a while and they are well respected. So if we take a look here at the New York Times, pull up an article from them. Retail sales in U.S. show steepest drop on record. They give you this good graphic source over on this side showing you exactly what it looks like. As to changes in how retail has gone, you can see the plunge that we're in right here and how big it is compared to these other plunges that we've had or times where it's been positive. So they're doing this to show you that this is a serious issue. You can click here and read their analysis on it. We'll go to the article though, so I can kind of show you the parts of what one of these articles looks like. So this is something that is updating live. This one does not have an author attached to it, especially because like the CDC, this is more of a statistical based argument. So they start you out with this pretty catastrophic is how it's described. They use a quote to kind of draw you in. You see that same exact chart that we saw before. They mark off the recession. So you can see last time, this is the 2008 recession, which you guys were pretty young during. And so it's comparing it to that. We scroll down a little further and we get our authors. Nice thing about the New York Times, it lets you click on the author and find out more about them. So we know that this woman is a business reporter covering retail for the New York Times. So we know that she's a person who has some expertise in this area, not only in business, but in retail. So she knows what she's talking about. Ben Castleman is our other author. We can find out about his qualifications. Economics and other business topics with a particular focus on store data. So this is kind of a data guy. That's his specialty. So based on this, we know that both these authors are going to know what they're talking about. So this one pretty much stays down the middle. They talk about retail sales plunging. Then they give you this quote here to kind of support the idea. Quotes are helpful. You can get information, but you want to hear from another expert. They get a retail analyst at Forrester Research. So this is somebody who works on researching retail for a living. Once again, you get kind of some more comparisons looking at this article. But these are kind of, I'm not going to go through all of this, but this will give you kind of the basics. And if you go to a New York Times article, scroll to the bottom here, we should have our vital information down here. Keep going. All right. So down here, you will find out exactly kind of what their resource information is. Where do they get their stuff? If you need to navigate, you can see that. We'll kind of skip over this. The last thing I want to go over with you guys are kind of the different divisions here. So you're going to start out with the New York Times with a lot of their news. As you scroll down further, we get into opinion. This is where you're going to get into some articles that could have some bias. And the important part about this is that you just have to acknowledge the bias. Bias isn't necessarily bad. You just have to know that it's there and use your kind of critical thinking skills ahead of time to think about how it's going to come out and formulate an opinion based on that. So we'll take a look at one of our opinion articles. Now, an opinion article is going to be a single person, and they are writing what they think about it. So there may be some news they use to back up their information, but ultimately this is their opinion. All right, so we look at this one. Think this pandemic is bad? We have another crisis coming. I did give you guys one opinion article from Amy Klobuchar, which is included in there. So we get our article. So take a look at that one. So we get our author here, Rihanna Gunright. Miss Gunright is the Director of Climate Policy at the Roosevelt Institute. So we can guess that this is probably going to be about the climate since she's a climate expert. And we don't know anything, though, about the Roosevelt Institute. I wasn't familiar with this myself. I know Franklin Roosevelt and Teddy Roosevelt were both presidents. So let's find out about the Roosevelt Institute. Sometimes they won't give to you right away what it is, so you copy. Nice thing these days, you can do a fast, easy Google search. If we look at the Roosevelt Institute, we find out the Roosevelt Institute is a liberal American think tank. So we know that this is probably going to have some bias, and it's going to be a liberal bias that's going to be in this article. So we have to keep that in mind as we are reading. We scan through her editorial. You'll notice that she hyperlinks to her sources. So she's giving you some information, and you're able to kind of look up that information based on what she links to. She gives some more information in here. You get some statistics. Now, the thing with the New York Times, because it's considered a reliable source, you can generally rely on the statistics. Editors have to look over anything that gets published in the New York Times. because they can get in a lot of trouble if they're publishing false information. New York Times has that responsibility. Some sources aren't going to have that level of responsibility. So once again, you'll see she kind of gives statistics to back her information. Once again, I won't go through all this article, but just so you guys kind of know the parts and what to look for as you fill out your Google Forms. If you guys have any questions, feel free to email me, of course, and go ahead and get going on your assignments. All right?